Hello, my name is Martha Meade, and I will be presenting on the ceremonies of the potlatch, an important cultural heritage for the New Chalmette. The New Chalmette First Nations reside on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and they've been there for thousands of years. The origin of the word potlatch comes from the New Chalmette language Pashalt, meaning giving. The word Pashalt can be traced back to the 1860s in pidgin language called Chinook jargon. The Chinook people lived along the Columbia River and were known for being traders long before the arrival of Europeans. They traded with other tribes along the west coast and the interior of North America. Chinook jargon is a combination of many different native languages, and later adding French and English. This language helped facilitate trade among many different people. The word potlatch comes from Chinook jargon, meaning to give. Historically, potlatches were held during winter months because of the cold, wet weather. The New Chalmette worked through the spring, summer, and fall months, moving from seasonal villages and semi-permanent camps for fish runs that took place in the spring and fall, and harvesting different plants through the growing season. They also hunted land and marine animals, all the time preparing and storing in preparation for the winter. Living within these rhythms of nature, they would move back to their longhouses to sheltered environments during the winter because of the weather and the limited food resources. This would be the time to get ready for potlatches. To prepare for a celebration took months of planning, and a potlatch could last for days up to weeks at a time. The topics I will cover on this potlatch significance will be spiritual, social, legal, political, economic, the gifts, and the divergent cultures. These ceremonies are the cornerstone of New Chalmette culture. Essentially, potlatches were and are a time for putting affairs in order and a system of governing. It's also a time for celebrating, educating, and entertaining. It's about giving gifts and recognizing the generosity of the spirit world. The New Chalmette believe powerful spirits inhabit the world around them. These spirits can be good, bad, or some combo of both. They believe these spirits live in the supernatural world as well as the environment. Everything is interconnected. Everything they have is because of these spirits. These spirits can give or they can take away. They feel it's necessary to honor these spirits that have provided for them by conducting many different kinds of ceremonies, including the potlatch ceremony. During potlatches, births, marriages, and welcoming new members into the tribe are celebrated. It's also a time to celebrate the lives and deaths of members who have passed on. This is a time also used to educate children on proper behavior, pass on their beliefs to them, teach them the stories of their heritage, and incorporate their coming of age through rituals and naming ceremonies. Many things have changed over time with these ceremonies, but the social aspects of potlatch still exist today. Potlatches are hosted by the chief, but all members contribute. The outcome of the ceremony reflects on the entire community. A successful potlatch brings honor and status to the chief, or an unsuccessful one will reduce the status of the chief and all the members of the tribe in the eyes of other First Nations. Everyone's involved in making it successful. Some provide the food or gifts, and others provide the entertainment and knowledge revealed in the dances, songs, and storytelling. Gifts can be material items in the form of labor, such as building longhouses, carving totem poles, or making canoes. With all the members contributing and desiring a successful potlatch, it reinforces cooperation and social cohesion with the community. Without a written language, this legal system and a system of governing that recognize the rights, status, and legal pronouncements. It includes inherited privileges and names. Weddings are also officially recognized and announced. It was a time to address broken tribal laws, and a person could have their status within the tribe decreased. A person could also have it increased due to an accomplishment or an act, and this would have been a time to officially recognize the change in status. The people that were invited to the potlatch, usually neighboring tribes, would be given gifts. This is a form of a contract, agreeing to bear witness to the pronouncements and act as a kind of record keeper for the proceedings. It also puts the recipients in debt to the hosts of the potlatch. The chief holding the ceremony also smoothed over disputes and disagreements with other tribes by inviting them to the potlatch. The foundation of the New Chalmers economy was rooted in potlatches. The host's intent was to give away as much material goods as possible to their guests, and in return, the guests would hold a potlatch in later years, doing the same thing plus a little more. It was important for the status to give away more than the previous potlatch. It would redistribute wealth, establish credit, and create debt that effectively created the local economy. It ensured all people of future wealth, whether it be food, clothing, storage devices, or services. It also provided food for the old and poor because there was always more food than could be eaten, allowing for people to take food home with them and survive through winter months. This giving in order to receive contract made sure to provide goods to all of society, not just the top echelons. A social hierarchy does exist within First Nations, the chiefs on tops, the nobles, and commoners. Gifts also reflected this division. The higher the status, the better the gift. Yet everyone was given something. The economic importance of the redistribution of wealth was their way of prioritizing values. Material wealth could indicate somebody had a lot of non-material possessions. Only somebody with a rich life could afford to give away so much. These non-material possessions include things like cohesion, cooperation, family, and community. It was these things that defined wealth. In the influx of Europeans, the late 1700s, explorers arrived along Vancouver Island. They traded with the First Nations and received sea otter pelts. These furs were found to be in great demand in China. Soon after, the traders arrived looking to cash in on this lucrative market. More and more traders arrived. They also brought with them diseases that the First Nations had no immunity for. It destroyed population numbers, and the mid to late 1800s was an increasingly difficult time for the native peoples. Missionaries and settlers arrived with different sets of values and beliefs, and governments were also established. As these divergent cultures mixed, the First Nations were encouraged to abandon their long houses in favor of single-resident European-style houses. The government established authority over the First Nations' land and resources. The missionaries petitioned for the government to outlaw potlatches. They were outlawed in 1885, and the law wasn't rescinded until 1951. The dances, costumes, and stories horrified the missionaries. The masks used in ceremonies that depicted powerful spirits and the stories of cannibalism were misunderstood and viewed as dangerous, needing to be eliminated. The missionaries didn't understand that some of the stories were meant as cautionary tales, to frighten children and to invoke respect of the spirit world that surrounded them. To further complicate the mixing of these two cultures, the redistribution of wealth was in direct conflict with the Western philosophy of amassing wealth individually, investing in an open market, and generating profits for the individual. The Euro-Canadian view was the accumulation of material goods only to give them away would only produce poverty, because these First Nations would not be able to prosper or acquire property while holding on to these traditions. And so assimilation into a consumer-driven capitalist economy was deemed necessary. The mountainous terrain and inaccessibility to the New Chalmers land made it difficult to enforce those laws. They held their potlatches in secrecy. Instead of using traditional elaborate cedar backdrops, they used painted curtains that could be stashed away. They also posted guards to warn them of intruders in the area. But because of the assimilation laws and the diseases that decimated populations, the new Chalmette cultural beliefs were weakened. As assimilation policies fell from popular favor, power began to shift back to the tribal governments. And as a result, there's been a revival of ceremonial life. Yet the rights of the new Chalmette, like land, water, and fishing rights, are still in the court system and far from being resolved. The current state of potlatches, they can occur after a wedding, a funeral, a birth, a college graduation, or be given for a naming ceremony. They now occur at any time of year, but usually last only 1 or 2 days. Gifts are still regarded as a social contract, agreeing to bear witness to official pronouncements, and the gifts are now more modern, like towels, money, silverware, dishes, and T-shirts. But some traditional handmade gifts are still given. To conclude this presentation, the spiritual significance includes honoring spiritual and physical world, including respecting the resources and using sustainable practices. The cultural significance includes strengthening ties within the community and family, educating children about their cultural heritage, and celebrating through stories, songs, and dances. The legal and political significance is still used to recognize contracts and pronouncements. It's still a system of governance, so they have a collective voice that can be heard. One of the main differences between potlatches then and now is the significance of economy. They still have the concept of gift giving and the difference between material wealth and non-material wealth, but the system of giving away almost all their material possessions is no longer viable. And the significance of divergent cultures can still be understood in the context that the new Chalmette are still fighting for their rights today.